keeping the cultura roots amongst the American hegemony of today. Our people have had to mimic and copy as a tactic to survive. Our lineage has always been hard to see for American eyes, but easy to find. We are here to deliver hope, resources, and the message. Bridging the gap from our bloodlines to today. Yo soy Joaquin.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hello, everybody.
Buenas tardes, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
How are you guys doing? Father's Day, Feliz Dia de los Padres on Sunday. I know everybody in this table are great dads, some of them grandpas, and how'd everything go?
It went well.
It went beautiful.
Didn't have to cook.
When you have your kids with you, when you have your grandkids with you, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Un día al año, tal vez.
Un día al año. Somebody said, yeah, para el Día de los Padres, you don't see any puestos out in the street selling teddy bears or anything. It's not the same. You
don't see any, you see flowers,
anything,
nada de eso.
Yeah.
Es increíble.
But it's all good. It's supposed to be that way, you know?
It has been for the past some odd years.
So it's been a minute since we gotten together and gotten back on the podcast, the Yo Soy Joaquin podcast. So thank you for the engineers behind the scenes that are making this possible. Obviously, there's a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about, a lot of content, a lot of things are happening really fast. So hopefully today we have an opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've been experiencing. I know some of you were there at the protest on Saturday, so I'm really anxious to hear firsthand the experience you guys had and the things that you witnessed.
Well, obviously, we're not only here in Las Vegas, but throughout the country. There were millions upon millions of individuals who are in favor of no kings as far as this government is concerned, because we are falling under a person who is wanting to be a dictator, wanting to be a king, wanting to put his fingers in every single pie that there is, and his opinion on everything. I'll tell you that I'm basically scared to death because primarily what happened, I believe it was Friday, when a United States Senator, now mind you, we are a country of 340 million inhabitants, 340 million. There are only 100 of those 340 million U.S. senators. So the prestige and the power there, it should be pretty big.
The respect.
And yet, we had a U.S. senator in his home state that goes up to a U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, and simply to ask, what are you doing here? And yet he was not only brought to the ground, thrown out, but handcuffed.
Detained.
A United States Senator. Imagínense what will happen to you, to me, or to our next door neighbor, or anybody else. In this country, we cannot allow that to happen. That has got to stop.
That was definitely a huge red line that was crossed. Never before seen.
No, and hopefully never again. But that didn't stop the king, the wannabe king. He is now threatening, of course, as you all know, to do the same, to arrest a governor of a state, Governor Newsom. And I believe that eventually, the way things are going, that might just happen. And is what's frightening. Eso me asusta. Me alarma de que esté pasando. And it's something that we cannot just take for granted. We have to fight that. I was happy to see the parade, the soldiers that were involved. These guys were not marching. They were not respecting that parade. They were not respecting the president nor his birthday. These guys were marching, were walking.
Yeah.
It was like a stroll in the park, and it was something I said to myself, these military guys are not really into what this wannabe king wants them to do. And going back to the word frightening and alarming, is that he is using the Marines. Of course, we all know that the Marines were created to defend this nation against foreign invaders and to fight in foreign lands people and countries that may want to attack the United States of America. And yet, King Wannabe is sending the Marines to fight against United States citizens on United States land, and that is frightening. We have to do something about this now. All of us, collectively, all of us have to do something about this.
I've seen that they had actually had more arrests during the Lakers championship when they won the championship than the actual protest event itself, and then send the National Guard and send military, and pretty much against citizens. I'm still in disbelief that it's 2025 and we're witnessing this.
Well, it's atrocious behavior.
I don't even have the word for it, bro. It's que alguien me pueda decir because of the way I look. Hey, do you have documents? Can I see them?
Where were you born?
Where were you born?
Well, I have seen that in my lifetime. However, what I had not seen was even when you prove that you are a United States citizen, that you are still harassed, that you are still handcuffed, that you are still detained and arrested and deported, because they have been deporting U.S. citizens. And once all the paperwork is done and people say, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen, now you're in a foreign land, then you have to pay your way back. You have to pay your way back home. And the whole thing is, that's the frightening aspect of things. The fact that, again, the government officials are being detained and not yet arrested, but nonetheless detained. Although we do know of a judge, I believe in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, who has been arrested and incarcerated and now faces a jury, to prove her innocence.
Why did she get arrested? What was the...
Well, she was accused of helping an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest.
In a courthouse.
In her courthouse. Okay, and yet in her own courthouse, she's arrested, handcuffed, put in a squad car, and taken to jail. That is frightening. Yeah. Frightening is the word.
So for the protest, for those of you that attended the protest, what was the feeling like? Was it more no kings, or was it immigration protests, or was it a mixture of both? What did you guys witness?
I went with Rob. Shout out to him. He's right behind the scenes, and Fernando, and I also took my daughter with me. I did feel safe. I experienced a little bit of both. I seen a lot of Anglos backing us up, having that allies, having saying, "Hey, this is a land of immigrants." The ones that were kind of like just instigating. I see a couple Trumpsters over there that they were just waiting for them to throw but they were there just to. ¿Cómo se dice? Para echarle gasolina al fuego. They wanted to start it to see who could start the debate. I don't know if that's what happened in LA, but there was a couple of them actually. I seen them get arrested. One of them, my daughter was in. She was like, I don't know, 4 feet away from me, so I always try to stay close to her. And I seen her as she was going away, so I kind of went to the side and I said, "Excuse me," like I would say "excuse me" to anybody. And then the guy's like, "I'm not moving," and I look and I'm like, "All right, bro, this is what they want. I'm not gonna engage."
Yeah.
Again, it's like, I'm not gonna be part of that ignorance. But I did see that there was some people in there just waiting to throw that to light that match. Overall, peaceful. People did join. I was really, really glad to see a lot of youth in there. Like my daughter, she's 20 21 years old. I seen 20-year-olds. We took a couple of pictures with chamacas con la Virgen Maria, with the flags. A lot of good signs. There was unity. Also, shout out to Metro, man. It was 110 degrees outside, and they're wearing all that, all that gear, and they were just, making sure everybody was safe. And
it may be a little more different. I really noticed positivity. People were, and the Anglo-Sajones, the Caucasians are wearing signs in defense of and backing the immigrants. And what was kind of surprising was I did not see that many Latinos at that protest, but I did note people singing, people smiling. I didn't confront anything like you just talked about. Basically, it was not basically. It was very positive. And people allowing us to take, or me anyway, to take pictures of their signs, to talk to them, and they were there again in opposition to no kings, and the majority of the signs there were no kings, and also that the immigrants have every right to be here, and basically in general, of the thousands of signs that were out there, those were the two main messages, and of course the mere fact that I realized that not only, and according to, by the way, the press, there were 8,000 protesters out there, that the millions of protesters across the country.
Across the world.
That makes me feel a little more, I won't say at ease, because at this point in time, none of us should be at ease, but at least say, hopefully, a little hope, perhaps is the key word, that this country may go back to normalcy, because we're not there yet. And unfortunately, we're going the other way. But again, at that protest, it was peaceful. And I understand, although we left like at 6:45 or what.
Yeah, 15
What
minutes
we were
early.
supposed to have ended at 7. It lasted. Some people stayed behind until 8:30, according to the media. There were a few arrests. I didn't see any. The only arrest that I saw was an African-American male carrying a cap that said "Blacks for Donald Trump." And I think the police wisely
saved him.
They arrested him. And I didn't see the handcuffs, so let me just say that they walked him out. And that's the only guy. I saw another another person who was wearing a mega hat, and he was just talking.
That's the one that was kind of instigating.
Yeah, he was just talking bullshit.
Yeah, he was just instigating to see
but nobody was really paying attention to the guy. They were kind of laughing at him, and basically that was it. But I saw a lot of smiles, and that made me feel warm.
I think so too. The vibes overall, I think they were positive. I think I gave out a bunch of hugs. People were positive. They were for the cause, and it was good to be part of it. I was proud of my daughter for showing up. I invited my kids as well. They're like, they all had something to do on a Saturday, and then she's like, I want to go. I said, all right, let's go.
One of the things that we're noticing and we're hearing from the community is that those that don't have legal status or are in the process of getting their legal status, whether it be a green card or in the process of getting their citizenship,
or helping somebody else get their
sponsoring someone else, are not putting themselves at risk. Their attorneys or people that are doing all these immigration clinics are sharing this information with their constituency or the people that are attending, not to put themselves at risk. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing more youth. And that's one of the things that we saw during the BLM protests and the George Floyd protests, is the youth coming out, energizing everything, the movement. That's one of the things we're going to see. And unfortunately, this is going to drag on for a little bit longer, what's happening with this current administration. And the youth, those youth that grew up interpreting for their parents, that grew up reading the mail for their parents, are getting reactivated civically. They're the ones that are standing up and going out into these public spaces and bringing that information back home for those that are in fear. Some of the imagery that we're seeing online and in the news, people are getting slammed on the ground. I'd hate to see my mom or somebody that's a little bit older getting tossed around in a setting like that. So that's one thing that I am so proud of, and I love seeing the youth take on these initiatives and just go out and do these things. But one of the things that I wish there's a little bit more of is a little bit more guidance, a little bit more mentorship from those that are a little bit more experienced with a younger demographic. So it's not just the marching and the protesting, and then what?
And then what? And then we vote. That's the key word. Yeah. All those individuals that we see, we should see them marching toward the
polls. Yeah.
The polls, and that's where the difference is going to be. I'm just really surprised, having been involved in politics for over 58 years, that the Republicans are not that concerned about the million marches.
Yeah.
So that really scares the hell out of me, because there's got to be some kind of plan that they have. Because normally, under any circumstances, you see a group gathering opposing something, and then politicians will react to that.
Right.
In this case, the goppers, the mega Republicans, are not reacting to it, and that is what's kind of scaring me somewhat. They are not concerned. It doesn't appear to be, and again, let's know this guy that in Minnesota that killed a state assembly senators, and he had a manifesto. I understand like 40 people that he wanted to kill.
All Democrats.
All Democrat. Well, there were a couple of Republicans on that thing, but the majority were Democrats. And yet, the president has not come out and spoken against that. He answered a question when he was asked about how he felt. Oh, it was atrocious. But he has not come out and faced the nation and said, I am opposed to what's going on right now. And neither has the leadership. You see Senator Mike Lee from Utah, who is he's really against all of these protesters and everything else. It's like, why are you protesting? Well, because we're being slammed to the ground, man. Because we're being deported, because you're invading our schools and our businesses. That's why. But this man, and again, that's what scares. That is what's got my antennas up. Because the Republicans are not reacting to the negativity that's going on there. They're not reacting to the positivity in my eyes, watching all these millions of people in protest of the no king, and yet the Republicans have not responded to that.
Well, I would just want to say that, it's the visuals. If you look at, the beginning when that started over there in Los Angeles, if you look at the vocabulary they were using, Trump was trying to use the word insurrectionist in the beginning of it. So I think they're putting a lot of the words and see what sticks, for some people. And obviously each senator has different situations, different constituents. But
what does that mean?
Trump is trying to put military in all the cities that he wants to put, military in. So by using the word insurrectionist, he was able to say, okay, now we have these insurrections. So he's able to basically pass by the federal government, be able to put military in each city where he thinks it's important to put the military in. But it hasn't really stuck yet. But it's the visuals, and, for example, in San Diego, if you haven't been to San Diego, there's a lot of little restaurants that you sit outside, and there's families sitting there eating breakfast, and I think when people start catching on is when they start experiencing that. Martin Luther King, when they marched in Alabama, the thing that caught everybody's eye was when they started hosing people down with the fire hoses, and that visual itself. You look at the history of that. Everybody had television, but when the people started seeing that, that's when they started realizing like what's going on. The cruelty. Now we have visual, right? But now it's got to be personal. Because now you talk to Republicans sometimes who are really hardcore, Republican. You talk to them, the excuse that they have now, they start saying it's AI. Oh, it's AI made when you discuss a debate with them. And all that was created by AI. Even Trump has used that. Oh, that's an AI created thing, right?
Fake news.
At the same time, they're making their own AI created news as well. But it's just how do we switch the narrative?
You got to put data to the AI content, so somebody's creating it.
So how do we switch the narrative? And that's the obviously organizing and voting and getting together and figuring out, talking to your neighbor and just getting these kids educated on the process of how to go out and protest and making sure that we do keep things peacefully, but also talking to obviously our leaders. But right now we got to play the long game when it comes to this. And unfortunately, some people are probably going to die because of this process. And I don't want to see the day that our own military starts shooting, our own citizens just because they're brown skinned and they're walking in the crowd.
We're seeing that day now. It's happening now.
And that's the crazy thing about it. We're living history right now.
Well, it's even worse. We're making it. That's the problem. And the president and his underlings are using certain labels against us to basically justify what they're doing and convince the innocent bystander.
One of the things the administration is doing, and they're losing that battle, is to be able to incite people against or in favor of what the administration is doing. But right now, that's not working. It's going against what they're trying to do because and all these protests showed how many people, Anglo people that typically don't get involved in our issues, are out there protesting in favor because now what Trump has been trying to do by demonizing brown people and minorities, it's backfiring on him, which is crazy. So Rob teed up the drone footage from the protest. There's some pretty interesting, and for those people that are on the street, I'd like to think that they're there to protect the community that's peacefully gathering from any extremist that's there to shoot up a crowd. But the reality of it is it's that serious. Thankfully, it was peaceful. There was nobody that got hurt. I know there was very few arrests this time around. Not like Wednesday, the previous week, where there was over probably like 98 individuals that got arrested. But it looks very peaceful. Everything that I've heard, everything I've seen on the news, it was very peaceful. So definitely, again, shout out to law enforcement, especially our local law enforcement.
And the only time that I did see law enforcement move, as I mentioned before, is when they took out that individual that was really
kind of instigating. I think they're kind of protecting him too, because that could have gotten pretty bad.
It helped out tremendously.
Yeah.
And the cops, they were all lined up, everything in the middle. You couldn't cross the street or anything else, which is fine. I mean, you're gonna carry a sign. It doesn't matter what side of the street you're on. But their mere presence and the fact that they were just standing there, they weren't doing anything that I saw menacing at all. Not and again the only movement I saw was that they did point out that gentleman and took him out of the crowd, and I'm assuming that he was just basically taken to a patrol car and they took him out of the way.
Yeah, I don't think they detained him. He didn't do anything unlawful. It's just they were protecting him and anything from breaking out in the crowd. So we're going to move over to the legislative session. So finally, the 83rd legislative session just ended not that long ago. There's a couple of bills that were being followed very closely by Raciel and definitely Rob in the media and film industry. Anybody want to kind of take that one? What happened with that film? Well, actually, there was two bills. They combined them into one, right?
It bothered me tremendously. What it was, AB 238, I believe it was.
The Sony bill.
And it was an assembly bill. And the thing is that a lot of people made noise as far as the amount of money that was going to go as taxpayer money to this business, without really realizing that all the thousands of jobs that would be created, and then definitely it was in the law that half of those jobs, about 4,000 I think, would be local jobs. And it's kind of bothersome because you have young men and women going to high school and then saying to themselves, what am I going to do right after high school? I have to either go into college or try to go to my uncle and getting him to employ me to work in his store or whatever.
The casinos.
Yeah, and these young men and women really don't have that future to look into. And yet, what was going to happen here, I think, was that all these professional jobs, high-paying jobs would have been created. And yet, unfortunately, it was not to be.
But
was it a close call? I mean, would you say it was close?
It was a close call. I did talk to a couple of elected officials, and they were opposing the bill. and without mentioning any names, they just said that the math didn't add up. They were thinking that the cost of this bill would have cost the state a lot of money, and that was one of the major reasons. And I also talked to some union members, some top leaders that they want to get that bill somehow or some way back on the floor before like now, not wait for 2 years. So there might be some life to it. I don't know. It's
like
just,
a special session kind
of
thing?
like, or there's gonna be a couple meetings on it. But that was that's kind of what I've heard, and I know there's a lot of people pissed off because also. Then the building trades, we got, the highest unemployment rate in the United States. So a lot of people are, they're needing this bill to pass to get some jobs. So
let me ask you this, you guys. So the media and film industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Of course, they're going to look for tax breaks and any incentives that they can get. That being said, if it didn't happen again, this is the second session that it fails. Do you really think that they're not going to move on bringing studios to Nevada just because of that? I mean, it's still a lucrative business. It's still going to be an industry that would boost the economy. But instead of doing it with taxpayer breaks, I mean, would it still be feasible, or would it still make sense to bring that business here?
Who knows? I know Texas is offering $300 million instead of $100.
To take them there?
Yeah, to take them there. So they're $300 million.
So there's a possibility you might lose them to.
Yeah, it's I like I said, I think there is some possibilities still there, but it's looking slim. But I listen to both sides. There's always two sides of the story. There's the left and there's the right. There's águilos sellos decían por ahí. So everybody had their own minds,
But I'll tell you what, that bill did engage a lot of people that typically wouldn't be engaged in the legislative session. So that was definitely something that was a positive.
Well, I know that what upset a lot of the unions, it upset me, was that individuals that we supported and the union supported had promised that they would certainly support the bill.
Elected officials.
Yes. And then when it came down to it, they did not.
So you had Vince Saavedra at the HIT meeting the other day. What was what did he share? What was the message he shared?
Well, basically that a lot of the individuals, the elected officials, were elected because of union money, union effort, union votes, and then at the last minute they turned down. They turned against the bill, and he mentioned at least one individual.
By name.
By name, and that would be Cynthia Moore, and Cynthia also. I contacted Cynthia, and she sent me back a text saying that nothing was going to convince her, nothing I could say would convince her to change her opinion.
So would you say that the Latino Legislative Caucus kind of lockstepped in their vote? Pretty much, it was everybody kind of voting the same.
Well, all I can say is this. The main industry in Nevada is gaming and tourism.
Destruction too.
So you think the casinos have their
casino
way of
have a
saying this is
powerful
we don't want competition over here
and basically
as another industry.
as an
and
industry?
it's been that forever. I've been here 58 years, as I've mentioned many times before, and every time there's a session, for example, people vote for the lottery. Mm-hmm. And for that $1 that one person is going to buy a ticket, the casino saves money that would go
coming
to them.
out of their pocket. Yeah.
And all these years, they have been opposing the lottery. They opposed it this year.
Just like they used to oppose sports as well, no? Because they did something with sports betting.
They didn't want to have supposedly professional sports here because it would, because of the betting. But the mining industry, isn't the mining industry kind of bigger than the tourism industry?
Well, it is big, but it's
in northern Nevada.
Yeah, well, not only that, it's kind of like a small thing compared to tourism and gaming. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, you're right.
So the lobbyists for the gaming industry obviously are a little bit more powerful and been around a lot longer.
Well, there's a lot of money behind that, and that's what counts a lot, obviously. And it was we won't vote you back in. We won't give you money, or we will give you money. Yeah. And it's one of those things where the casino and tourism industry is continues to be very powerful. The governor has vetoed many bills.
So what's up with that, man? Didn't he hold the record with the most vetoes as a governor?
Well, he said, I'm against the veto pen. That's what he said. Those were his words.
Yeah,
I'm against the veto pen. Yes.
It's like 83 something that he vetoed.
Well, something in fact. And again, that happened a session ago.
Mm-hmm.
He vetoed the most bills that any other governor had, and he did the same thing now. And there's still a couple of bills. I think he's got a couple of days left to be able to veto.
The one that really kind of stood out to me that he vetoed was protecting schools from immigration enforcement. The fact that he voted against that protection for our schools, for our kids in our schools, that was very telling of where he stands with immigration and the current administration. But it's still his decision.
Yeah.
You know, of how he voted on that one. That was very telling to me.
Well, again, it was telling to me as well. But I know Lombardo when he was sheriff. I knew Lombardo when he was sheriff, and I would belong to the Multicultural Advisory Council, and I argued against the sheriff's support of 287G, which is the memorandum of understanding with the Department of Justice that allowed the police department to hold an individual who has no legal papers to hold and call immigration to come pick him up or her up. And so I opposed him and on 5 different occasions. And finally, the last time, 2 weeks after our last debate on the 287G, the ACLU won a court lawsuit, I should say, and then it eliminated 287G. However, the I Want to Be King brought it back, and it now 287G
In effect.
is back in effect. And it's very...
So for those that don't know what 287G is, anybody care to elaborate on what that power gives or what that what it does with law enforcement? Because I'm assuming North Las Vegas follows suit and probably Henderson as well. What is 287G? What does that mean?
Well, 287G said that if you were picked up for any offense, whether it be a speeding ticket or
any misdemeanor
or shoplifting or what have you, they would of course ask you your legal status in the country. If you did not have any proper document, then you were arrested. You were placed in jail for at least 3 to 4 days until immigration would come and pick you up. If they did not come pick you up, you still had to face trial as far as the
violation,
what you were arrested for. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect is that they could go to your home and then arrest you at home. ICE could. No, the police.
The police?
The police as well.
Okay.
The police, that's why it was a memorandum of understanding.
But currently, the current 287G, the way the current sheriff explained it was that they will detain or hold somebody that's been arrested for ICE for up to 48 hours, which before they weren't doing. So now, according to them, the only thing that this is going to do, the only way they're going to aid ICE is they're going to detain somebody up to 48 hours so ICE can come pick them up. And some of the COs, corrections officers, are also going to be trained with ICE so that they can process them. But from what the sheriff has said and what I've read and what I've heard is that this is only going to impact things within the detention center. So no enforcement from local law enforcement with ICE raids or operations of enforcement out in the street. That is what I've read. That is what the sheriff has said. That's what I've understood. I would like to think that that's as far as it's going to go. I would hate to see local law enforcement run operations on law enforcement. I mean, with ICE, with raids out in the public.
Well, Sheriff McMahill addressed Hispanics in politics in our, I believe it was February meeting, and he did say, Metropolitan Police Department is not immigration. We will not do their work. We will do our work.
This was about 2 or 3 months ago. I wonder if that mentality has changed.
Yeah.
Well, it did change a little bit. And I think the pressure from the current administration and then, labeling the city a sanctuary city, which means you're going to take funding away and you're going to do all these other things. So they're using whatever they can to strong arm, law enforcement, because a lot of federal dollars are taken away, and it does impact law enforcement and the way they do things. But I do hope that is the case, because it's so hard. Metro has done such a good job after the riots and the protests, in 2020, 2021, to rebuild the police department and the way they enforce and the relationships with the community that they've done. And they've done an excellent job of doing that. They do a lot of community-oriented policing, and they've built trust in the community again, which is something that's very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. Going back on that is going to be impactful for decades.
Let's not forget some of the police officers too. They have familia who are undocumented. So for them, a lot of them start with or ends with the letter Z. So I had a police officer today come to the office just saying how uncomfortable that is for the fact that, we have to do that. But also, we're a very diverse police force. I mean,
it's intentional.
That's not going to go away. And I think we're in Las Vegas compared to other places. I think I think they're fair, obviously, but at the same time, they do have to protect the public. But at the same time, yes, I think he was forced recently because of what you just said. And I did see that. And he made a comment specifically to communicate to the public. They still want to keep a relationship at the same time to make sure they understand if you're in detention and you have a warrant, or you have, for ICE to come pick you up, they're going to hold you for those 48 hours. So I think they still want to have some type of dialogue with the community. And I think using that, communicating that with them, I think it's important. Because at one point maybe they're going to be asked to do that, and then maybe if we keep that dialogue with them, maybe at that point they can stand up to this these laws that the federal government wants in regards to ICE.
I mean, we got to realize and recognize that law enforcement, especially at those levels of a police chief or a sheriff, it's very political. Law enforcement practices or best practices sometimes take a back seat to the politics of the day, and it's hard for a career law enforcement person, especially at that level of a chief, police chief or a sheriff, I mean, it's difficult. I know that it's very difficult for them to support their patrol officers and support their officers, especially when there's politics in the middle of things, that's at a higher level. But
yeah, well, think about it. If you work in the correctional part of it, you're a police officer in there, and then your Theo comes along.
Yeah.
And you know that he's not, and what happens to you?
Yeah.
No, you have to do your job.
You do your job, but what happens if you don't?
If you don't, you're fired.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I was a member of the Metropolitan Police Department Multicultural Advisory Council for many years. Many sheriffs, Keller and McCarthy and Gillespie, Lombardo, and now McMahill. Of all those gentlemen that I just mentioned, McMahill seems to be the guy that is more prone to help, and let me just say, not overly exert his authority. And so I have to take my head off to Kevin McMahill for that. However, knowing the King wannabe and the pressure that he's applying to all officials, all governmental officials, the McMahill, unfortunately, may have to do some of that dirty work that the wannabe king wants.
So I mean, it's very obvious. It was very obvious that he was kind of forced to do so, because he was very open about saying, he's not going to be doing any ICE enforcement. That's not what they do. His officers are busy doing police work, protecting the community locally. And then all of a sudden this happened. And I know it has to do with, it's the politics behind it, but I do agree with you, Fernando. He is very supportive of his officers in the department and the community. Like I said, it took them years to rebuild that trust, and they've done an excellent job of doing it. I've worked with a lot of the community-oriented policing officers that are building coalitions and building support and building trust within the communities. I know they don't want to break those bridges and those lines of communication that have taken them years to build. So this is going to be interesting to see that, because at the end of the day, it's a matter of what's right and what's wrong. And it's just, it's sad that we're living these times right now. It is very difficult.
So that's
during the Saint City Toy Drive for 3 years in a row. Metro was one of the largest contributors. They would come in with literally loads of trailers just filled with toys for the barrios. So yeah, man, it's definitely a step backwards.
Well, with that said, how do we let's segue into the resource center? How what kind of relationship are they for the resource center with Dolores Huerta? Obviously it's in North Las Vegas, but are they the police officers? Are they keeping good communication with you guys, and are you guys having an open relationship there where you guys can share and also have them feel safe and the public safety at hand? Are they involved in that?
So law enforcement, Metro and North Las Vegas police departments are very different. The structure is different. North Las Vegas and Henderson, they have police chiefs that fall under city manager, and then Metro, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department have a sheriff. So the political structure is very different.
An elected sheriff.
An elected sheriff, exactly. So the structure and the leadership is very different. I will leave it at that. But community-oriented policing works. It's crime prevention, building relationships. So they went back to that style of policing after everything that happened with George Floyd and the BLM and all that. That's the way it used to be back in the day. The patrol officers would know people in the community would know the police officers. So they're going back to that. One of the things that we're doing at the Dolores Huerta Resource Center is offering resources for the community. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of is the anxiety with the family separations for the children. If you think it's stressful for an adult, think about a child that sees this and hears this, how families are being separated, they're losing their parents. A few months ago, I think you guys probably heard this story, some elementary school girl went home and hung herself because they were bullying her at school, telling her that they were going to send ICE to deport her parents. This little girl did not know how to deal with this, and she hung herself. So there's a lot of youth in our schools. And this is another thing. School enrollment this next year, I guarantee you will be down significantly because our children, our youth, are taking on these stressors that they're seeing on social media. I mean, you can't go on social media without seeing this. And they don't know how to deal with these things. So one of the things we have at the Dolores Huerta Resource Center is we have 3 mental health service providers available to talk to individuals, families, and groups in both English and Spanish, specifically the youth. And one of the things is that as a young individual, you don't know how to ask for help. You don't even know you're going through these things. So it's important for the parents or those that are in a position to see that are adults to be able to say, hey, you know what? Let's go check out this resource center. I hear they have podcasting there, or they have gaming computers. And then once you're there, you know what? Hey, there's a group session. There's this, there's that. Those resources are there for free. And the idea is that our community are able to access resources to improve the quality of life. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I do see and I do notice that there's people that are afraid to come out. They're not going out to public spaces where they typically go. That's churches. The swap meet, which is typically full every weekend, has been pretty much empty. So people are afraid. But at the end of the day, there's resources at the Dolores Huerta Resource Center that are free, that are there. They todos te reciben en inglés y en español. And we're open Monday through Saturday from 12 to 8 p.m. If you guys can share that information with somebody that might be needing a little bit of help, there's food assistance. There's market, farmers market pop-ups at a neighborhood rec center. This Saturday at JD Smith, we're going to have a food pantry as well. Mobile market. It starts at 8 o'clock at JD Smith. You went to JD, no?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so right there in the neighborhood. So there's resources out there, and we just need to, because we're okay and we have food on the table and whatnot, we just have to remember those that don't and open up that dialogue and share that information with them.
So you think the system for some of those people who feel afraid that should they just do online schooling at this point, or is that going to be available for some students? Because some students still go online. But can they say that, like, I like my kid to be online versus... But
let's be real. You remember the last time we went virtual.
Does COVID mean anything to you?
Exactly. What happened with COVID, the majority of our students, our Latino students, didn't have access to the internet or computers. Back then, they were giving Chromebooks to students. Now, they're not going to be doing that. So we're gonna lose a lot of students that are gonna get behind in their schoolwork. Some that were scheduled to graduate next year might not, which really sucks because a lot of those students are undocumented themselves, and it's been shown and proven in everywhere that churches and schools are not exempt from ICE raids.
Just talk about raids, and I was really in shock. I think Rob was going to show this video came directly from the White House. I believe in Instagram on their platform. I don't know if they do this for fear factor or just for clickbait. I don't know what you call this, but I think it backfired. But
it backfired against the.
Yeah, it says we show up, we stand firm, we carry in the mission despite the noise.
This is a Santa Fe Spring swap meet, a very popular swap meet in Southern California.
It's like it's a crazy, like a war zone on the swap meet, dude. I mean,
but see, this is frightening. When you see all these individuals dressed in a war gear, con todo el uniforme, the way they have it, with the guns and the masks that is frightening. That is, I thank God I was never in that, obviously in that Nazi situation, but reading everything I have and watching the documentaries that there have been, this is what we look at. So same thing. So people dressed in uniforms, armed to the gills, against citizens who are not even armed with a pencil. So that's frightening.
Engineer, how much time do we have left? 5 minutes. So what I would like to do, and I hope you guys can all contribute, we are talking about some really difficult times. We've shared the word fear several times. What can our community do? Is there anything positive that we can share before we cut out? What are some things that we can do or share or that our community can do to stay safe and stay informed?
The only thing, to answer your question, and sorry for the interruption, is to have everybody vote, everybody who can vote. Because as we noticed, going back to Joe Lombardo, he is limiting access to the ballot box. So why are they limiting access to the ballot box so that we cannot vote? It's making it more difficult to get that vote out. So we need to have a really aggressive voter registration and voter motivation to take individuals to the polls. We need to do that because right now all these millions of protesters are just out there protesting.
Yeah,
we need voters.
So that reminds me of I don't know if you remember Pete Wilson 187 in California. I don't know if you remember that Proposition 187 woke up the Latino vote. I think this is going to be even bigger than that. Just some facts for those that have been incarcerated and that are ex-felons. You can vote. As of 2019, you are eligible to register and vote without having to have your record sealed or anything like that. You can register to vote the day you get out. So definitely that's something for the community that need to know. In our minority communities, we have a lot of individuals that have been incarcerated. The majority of our inmates in our correctional facilities are black or brown. So just so you know, you are not disengaged. You can also get engaged and register to vote and vote because it's very important.
Y mi gente, we can deal with abortion in some other shape and form. We need to vote. We need to take that aspect of the publicity the public is going on and have people just vote for the sake of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because now it's not just the immigrants, it's every single one of us. Even if you're an elected official, even if you're Senator Alex Padilla or Governor Gavin Newsom, you still need to vote, and we need to get the wannabes out and have some kind of democracy back in order. We have to do from the U.S. Supreme Court to the state Senate, U.S. Senate to Congress. We need to change it and get back to normalcy, get back to the days that Democrats and Republicans dealt with one thing: the American public, the good and the welfare of the American public.
What do you think, Cesar? Positive note.
Well, being the doctor in the community, I'm seeing this every day when patients, people come in, they're actually very stressed out. So for me, it's just making sure that, they're understanding that, what they're going through is an emotional stress environment, and they want a reaction, right? When you're emotional, it controls your actions to some degree, right? And making sure that you react properly and keep your family safe, and also understand for some of you who have children they're undocumented. I understand, that as a doctor, for me in the community, I just provide hope as much as I can, because I was first born in the United States, and I know how difficult it was for my parents. But understanding that we got to focus on the long game. And know that this is just a 4-year process.
3.5 now.
3.5 now.
It feels like 5 years already.
And Fernando's correct. Just be patient as business owner. If you care about the immigrant population and your business has benefited from the population, I think it's my responsibility to remind business owners to, hey, look what you're doing. You're basically saying that you're dehumanizing human beings, and it's going to affect everything. I mean, like you said, the swam meets, the soccer game. We just talked about that. Think about how many Mexican people go to the soccer games.
Yeah.
Just to go have some entertainment, to take their young kid, their child, to have a father-son experience, or a mother-daughter, or soccer's pretty prevalent in our community. Like just to think about the effects. I think we're gonna have to play the long game. We're gonna have to read and understand how this game is played. I think a lot of people need to probably learn a little more about civics, a little more about how the government works. Mm-hmm. Before, we probably depended on the government too much for many years, and now we have to kind of go back into like electric company back in the days when they showed you how to vote on TV. You would watch these cartoons, right? So I think just keep your head up, and just keep your eyes open. And then some families have to send one person to the store, and that's what has to happen. That's what we got to do until this situation kind of changes. As Fernando said, we have to there's going to be a lot of people registered to vote, and I'm sure the plan is, how do we get them counted? Like you said, some people are going to try to stop the process for them to be a citizen and in regards to vote. But I understand that we have to just be patient. Don't get emotional. It's like boxing. You get punched. Sometimes there's an interview with Mike Tyson's coach. He goes, that's when you have to remain calm.
He says everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah, and you have to you have to react to it. We got punched just recently, so we have to be calm and really think objectively, and to help our neighbors. Some people are going to need some assistance emotionally, because with the whole stress of like children, like you just said, we already have issues right now with kids and emotions and depression and suicide, but that's going to add more to the process.
Yeah, well, Raciel, what do you think?
I say keep the faith, man. I say hay que tener fe. There's a lot of positive that's going to come out of this, I believe. I was looking at that video, and I went through the comments. There's a lot of people posing that, saying how they're going to that rally again, seeing a lot of people that were not united now. I think like Dr. Quintana says, like look at the long horse, and we'll get through it and get out there and vote, man. We're the sleeping giant. We really need to get our tios and our primos and our cuñados or whoever, bro. You got it. You got the right to vote, and we need you now, and we got to communicate that message.
Yeah.
Pues tener fe.
Vote for the right person, because some people did vote last time. Look what happened. So now we got
the wrong person.
Let everybody know it's okay, man. It happened, but we just got to do the right thing now.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know what? I thank you guys. I really wanted to make sure we ended on a positive note. One of the things that people are looking for is some guidance and some direction. Keep the faith. Definitely vote. Watch your mental health and your physical health. And it's back to the basics, man. So many similarities to COVID. It's have a plan. You got to have a financial plan. You got to have a plan for this, a plan for that, and communicate with those people that are your resources. There are a lot of resources out there, and one of the things we want to be able to do is provide those resources to the community, but you have to go out and get them. Don't be afraid. The youth are stepping up like they always do, and I think it's important for us older individuals to bridge that gap and provide some mentorship, some guidance, because they're the ones that get activated and the ones that get out there and do it. but we definitely need to support and mentor the process as well. So yeah, it is a long game. Let's get some strategies together and definitely support one another.
Remember, we started with Yo Soy Joaquin. If you listen to the poem again, just keep listening to it because it goes through that process, and that's what we're in. Again, we're in that process. Some people sold out, and unfortunately, we're just going to have to go through that process of that poem and understand that we will endure. In the end of the poem, remember, we will endure is the big part of the ending of the poem. We will endure. We built civilizations before in Latin America. We will not stop building those civilizations because they built those to last. And I think they know that. And now it's just a matter of just getting the right people in the positions. And also, we're not going to be cruel. We don't have to be cruel in order to lead. You don't have to lead that way. You can lead with love and compassion for others, and not be like, oh, I remember when you did this to me. I understand. I played sports. Sometimes you feel that way. But in the end, you know what? Like Mr. Romero here is probably the best dressed Latino Mexicano here in Las Vegas. He shows us, what it's like to wear a suit every day. You know what? Sometimes we might have to go that route again and start wearing suits. So we're going to ask Mr. Fernando to take us shopping, all of us to pick our suits out here for the future. So
Mr. GQ.
Mr. GQ.
It's old school, but it opens doors.
Yeah, it does.
The other thing that I wanted to add real quick, I know right now there's a lot of people organizing. I know there's people that are coming together trying to strategize. I just want to throw this out there. Soccer, you guys have, the sport, soccer, you played it. We were just talking about soccer. On the soccer field, if you think about it, just envision a soccer field. There's different positions. There's people that are your left wing, your right wing. You have your midfielders, your defense, and your goalie. Everybody plays an important role in an important position. Not todos van a meter gol. And that's something that we all need to know, because sometimes when we start building these coalitions and strategizing, todos quieren mandar, todos quieren dirigir, todos quieren ser el capitán, el que mete goles. That's not the way it works. Strategy, there's defense and there's offense, and we all play a role, and it's important that we move as a team and not everybody trying to make the goal and have the mic and have the spotlight, because that's not how you build coalitions.
Even the fans are part of it.
Floyd Mayweather retired undefeated just with a defense game.
Yeah,
that's true.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and wind this up. Thank you, guys. We had another successful podcast, Yo Soy Joaquin podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll do this again. If there's any suggestions or recommendations for topics and things you want us to discuss, feel free to reach out. We'd love to be able to explore those and maybe bring some special guests that can speak on the topic, that are experts in that topic. So
stay grounded.
God bless.
Muchísimas gracias.